No comment. Thanks, Stuart. Thanks for the kind introduction from our friends at Tech. It's great to see you here. I'll join you in thanking Chief Campbell for the welcome to the territory. It's great to be here on Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh territory, and to see all of you here in beautiful, rainy Vancouver. As Stuart said, we're back to ordinary weather, but you'll notice that there's still something unusual here. The Canucks are on top of the division, which is not hoping for a return to normal, but sometimes we worry. I'm joined today by a couple of colleagues. Minister Cullen is here somewhere, if not in the room, then imminently. Oh, there he is over in the corner. Minister Osborne is here, joining us from Energy and Mines. Your partners in the work that we have to do. And also, I do want to recognize my counterpart from the Yukon who is here, Ranj. Welcome, of course, to Vancouver. Great to see you. Ranj and I have a shared vision for where we need to go. Which includes close cooperation between the Yukon and British Columbia around critical minerals, around mining, around energy, and around addressing the issues of climate change. Certainly acute in the Yukon, and some of the issues that we've seen here in British Columbia as well, forest fires. Great to see you here, Ranj. Thank you for joining us. Thanks to the Roundup Organizing Committee for giving me the chance to speak to you again this year. And I'll get right to it. As my wife says, reducing emissions starts at home. That one takes a second sometimes. You heard our federal parliamentary secretary. Everyone in this room knows the importance of the critical minerals that are here in British Columbia and in Canada, the importance to national security, the importance to addressing climate change, the importance to, as you heard Stuart say, all of the technologies we're looking to in the future. We've got 16 of the critical minerals that have been identified by Canada right here in British Columbia. And the reason we know that is due to a lot of the work of the people in this room. So thank you for exploring. Thank you for finding those minerals to ensure our prosperity going forward. There is an ongoing discussion in our province and many parts of the world around the best way to approach mining and energy projects generally. And I want to confirm with you where we sit here in British Columbia. There are some people who say, look, the best way to address climate change, the environment, and this overall concern about where the world is going is just leave stuff in the ground. We need to stop mining. We need to stop energy production. And that is their perspective on environmentalism. There are other people who say, that's crazy. We need to get rid of as many rules as possible. We need to do everything we can to remove every imaginable requirement, obligation, whether around pollution, Indigenous engagement, permitting requirements. Obviously, that is a different perspective on how to move forward. In British Columbia, we believe very firmly that the key to prosperity and sustainable prosperity, not just for our province, but for the country, for the world going forward, is to maintain high standards in our province in partnership with industry and partnership with First Nations. And we are proving out together with you that not only is this a good idea, but it actually works. And I'll share some of the reason why I believe that with you shortly. Our plan to continue to deliver on that shared goal that we believe that we have with you, with industry, and with First Nations partners who are here today. Our plan to ensure that we can realize that is our Made in BC Critical Minerals Strategy. This new strategy, which we will be sharing with you over the conference over the coming days, will help us in expanding development of critical minerals across the province. It will assist us in attracting new investment to our province and driving the sustainable growth that I know all of us are looking for. Today, we're publishing our Critical Minerals Atlas. This is to ensure that the geoscience information that we have is available freely to you for exploration and land use planning. Included in that atlas will be the critical infrastructure essential to mining development, including infrastructure like the future North Coast transmission line that we're working on with nations right now. There is huge potential for us in making this information widely available and ensuring the collaboration between industry, between First Nations, provincial, and federal governments. As an example of this kind of cooperative work, We have been working with the Tahltan Nation on the future of the Red Chris mine, for example. The role and the assistance that the provincial government can play at that critical table between the nation and the company is in addressing issues that neither the company nor the nation can address on their own. So when we hear from the company and from the nation that highways 37 and 51 are major impediments to growth in that area, to the future of the mine, then it's the provincial government's job and opportunity to step up as a partner and address those issues. So we're going to fix those roads. We're doing an initial study, and we'll be applying and using some of the resources from the federal funding, thank you, Parliamentary Secretary, to support development, serve the region, and address those highways. In addition, on our critical minerals strategy, we're establishing a critical minerals project advancement office. This brings together dedicated staff from Josie's ministry to ensure that priority projects make their way through our provincial permitting process quickly and efficiently. Last year I was here, and much like you heard from the Parliamentary Secretary, I made a commitment to you. I said that the province would be working on addressing our permitting times, but I understood that permitting applications processes took way too long for us to be able to get the work done that we need to get done. We're not finished our work yet, but I want to share some progress with you. For exploration permits in our province, we've gone from 250 days to 148 days. On the overall regional permitting backlog for mines, we've seen a 52% reduction thanks to new processes. We're going to continue that work with you, and one of the ways that we've been able to facilitate that acceleration is by working with nations to ensure longer-term strategies and addressing core concerns of nations to be able to get those permits through faster, because it is a cooperative partnership here in British Columbia. Finally, as part of our ongoing, as part of this new critical minerals strategy, we're launching the new Energy and Mines Digital Trust. Now, this is an important piece, and it's a bit technical, but the concept is quite straightforward. We want people, we want companies who are producing here in British Columbia to benefit from the high standards that we have. It's one thing to have the standards in place, but if your metals, if your minerals are going into a big bin with low standard jurisdictions, that competitive advantage is lost. This assists us in tagging the resources that are developed here in British Columbia, using the blockchain so that they can be traced around the world, and you can assure your end customers that the products that they are using are low carbon, produced in cooperation with First Nations, with the highest standards. Now, this might sound like a notionally good idea, but what does that mean financially? We see jurisdictions like the EU looking at putting tariffs in place that vary depending on the carbon content of the materials that are brought into the EU. And the Americans are also looking at potentially taking similar steps. This is something we expect to see more and more often around the world. And you're being able to say that BC materials are produced with low carbon energy, with the highest standards, will be a competitive advantage for you in jurisdictions that are willing to pay a premium for BC's clean materials. A couple of days ago at the Resource Forum in Prince George, it was my honor to share with that audience our commitment to a clean energy future for British Columbia. In particular, a 50% increase in BC Hydro's capital budget, a $36 billion capital plan for BC Hydro. So we're not just a fan of critical minerals, we're also a customer. And we're putting in place the critical energy infrastructure that is needed for mines to be able to produce those minerals more efficiently and with a lower carbon footprint. Just in terms of jobs, that's about 11,000 jobs a year that will carry forward after Site C is complete. So we've got lots of work for people to do, and we've got lots of people to do that work, to use some BC copper to string some wire for us and to fix up our historic mines or historic dams. But also, we're going to be able to meet, now keep in mind our Northwest Transmission Line is in addition to this capital project. We're going to be able to meet the need for reducing carbon tax obligations, reducing carbon production from mining in British Columbia, ensuring efficiency, lower costs for mines in British Columbia. We have a clean energy advantage in British Columbia, and we are going to seize it in partnership with you. Now, the moment you've been waiting for, the exploration spending numbers. We had a very strong year again in 2023. I want to thank you all for your part in it. Mineral exploration expenditures in the province amounted to $643.5 million in 2023. Mining production value in 2023 was $15.9 billion. So that means over the last 5 years, exploration has amounted to $2.5 billion, with mining production at $54.6 billion. Those are incredible numbers. Congratulations. Please give yourself a round of applause. Everyone in this room keeps pushing BC forward as a clean mining jurisdiction. Thank you for doing that. Your efforts are definitely being noticed globally. We saw Newmont take over 2 mines in Northwest BC, worth over $5 billion through the acquisition of Newcrest. One reason for that investment here, and we've seen tens of billions invested into our mining sector, one reason for that is the certainty that we are able to provide. And I'm sure that many of you, especially those of you in the copper world, saw what happened to First Quantum in Panama. Now, I know that in many cases, the requirements that are placed on you by British Columbia, perhaps by Canada, feel onerous. And like there are other jurisdictions where you could move faster and it's cheaper. But I think the First Quantum example in Panama with the Cobra mine is a very good example of the challenges of thinking that you are saving by moving to other jurisdictions. That is a company that invested literally billions of dollars in a copper mine. Shortly after starting operations, it was closed by the Panamanian government. That is not going to happen here. Once you make your investments in British Columbia, then your investments are safe and that mine will continue to operate. We need to make sure that we're reminding people around the world of our commitment, our public support for mining, our partnership with First Nations, and the stability to investment that that brings. As global demand for critical minerals increases, we see BC at the forefront. You're a big part of that. And the announcements I've shared with you today are foundational to ensure we stay on the front lines of that work. Thank you very much for having me here today, and I look forward to hearing your questions.
Okay, looks like these are on. Can you all hear me? Sounds like it.
Hello? Yep.
We're good to go. So first of all, thank you very much, Premier Eby, for those remarks. For those of you who I haven't met yet, my name's Amber Johnston-Billings. I'm the Vice President of Communities and Government Affairs at Teck Resources. On behalf of Teck and many in the mining industry, I just want to say that we do greatly appreciate the time, effort, and the resources that your government dedicates to the exploration and the mineral industry. And just on the basis of your last remarks around Panama, we do recognize that BC is truly a world-class jurisdiction for critical minerals exploration and development. So thank you. I should also say that we do appreciate the government and industry collaboration that we see. Certainly at Teck Resources, we have a close relationship with government, and we wouldn't be able to achieve the things that we do here in the province without their ongoing support. So we have a lot to talk about. I know time's limited, and you actually mentioned a couple of these in your opening speech, but I did want to say thank you for 2 big announcements for the industry in the last 2 weeks, and you mentioned one of them. It's related to climate goals, BC Hydro, an extraordinary $36 billion, obviously a 10-year capital plan, and that will certainly help us build out our electrification capacity. It will help us meet our respective climate change goals, and it's a huge investment in the province and the minerals industry, so thank you for that. And the second one is obviously phase 1 of the province's Made in Canada, Made in BC critical minerals strategy. So I was wondering, you mentioned a little bit about the dedicated office, the digital certificate program, but could you talk a little bit more about the first phase of the critical minerals strategy and your view of how the intention behind the strategy and how it came to fruition will support continued investment in BC's critical mineral exploration and mining?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks very much for the question. And I do enjoy the Q&A sections of it more freewheeling. So I think for BC, it's critical to understand that we do have the critical minerals strategy. I keep using the word critical. It's essential to understand that we have the critical minerals strategy, but it is one component in an overall strategy across government around resource development, around rural economic development, and around climate in the province. And so I don't see the investments in electrical capital as being distinct from the critical minerals strategy in terms of support for the mining sector, and I'm glad that you don't either. They are all part of an integrated whole. The essential parts of this strategy are about ensuring that we have the best information possible, that we're sharing the information with the sector around critical mineral geotechnical information that we have, that we're supporting additional geotechnical exploration across the province, that when you are coming to British Columbia to either explore or invest, that you're coming to a jurisdiction where there are dedicated staff who are prepared to support you from beginning to end. We know that the system is complex. Some of it is necessarily so, some of it not necessarily so. So we're taking out unnecessary complexity, but there will always need to be that assistance through the system in order that concierge service through the system to be able to get done what's needed, especially given the fact that, we've got 200 plus First Nations in the province, some with overlapping claims. We've got those high environmental standards. So this office will be a huge assistance in getting through all of that. And then when you get through that, you need to see some benefit from it. So it's not enough to have the cleanest aluminum in the world, which we do. It's also important to our government that you see the premium that comes from that as well. And that is something that we're trying to really support you in, being able to get the benefit of the investments that you're making and operating in this jurisdiction where we accept and support having higher standards, and you do as well.
Great, thank you. And so when you mentioned the concierge service, that's for exploration companies, mining companies, and also for Indigenous nations and other Indigenous organizations. Is that envisioned to be a place where people come together to solve challenges?
That's right. There are two parts to it. One is just the straight up permit part. And obviously we're involved with nations in the permitting process around exploration as well right now, given the recent court decision. So just getting through the permits process, that's part of it. But also we're doing work outside of the permitting process to make life easier as well. We're trying to get ahead of when you're already on the land, you've already identified the deposit, you're already bringing forward your permit applications, you're a long way down the road. We want to start even earlier before the private sector has shown up and do it in partnership with First Nations, communities, and industry to say, let's do some land use planning up front. When we do the land use planning up front, it's so much easier to know where the hydro lines go. It's so much easier to know where the roads go. Everything is facilitated on the permitting side. And we're also looking at opportunities, starting with the Northwest Transmission Line. How do we ensure that nations are economic partners in these projects as well, so that everybody's interests are aligned in getting things done? This will all assist into speeding the permitting process. The concierge service really comes on the back end of that. We've got the plan about where things go in advance. We've got the tools in place in terms of equity participation by nations. And then we've got the permits themselves where you've got the folks in the office that are helping you get across the line.
Fantastic. Thank you. So maybe even before the planning process, I just wanted to jump to the reconciliation discussion and the Minerals Tenure Act. And so we know that this government is obviously very focused on reconciling with Indigenous peoples. It's something that at Teck Resources, it obviously means a lot to us as well, and it's something that we're focused on. We had DRIPA approved in 2019, and we know that you're working on updating the Mineral Tenure Act. And so I imagine this comes before the concierge service, before the planning piece, and you know that our industry, we've spoken to you about it before, obviously supported that ruling, partly because we believe that there is that need, as you mentioned, to provide clarity and predictability for the industry, but also importantly to advance reconciliation. And so I was wondering if you could share some of your thoughts around how we should be viewing the updated Mineral Tenure Act and how we as industry and as exploration companies should best be engaging with the BC government in the reconciliation discussion.
Thanks. I would say overall, there is, and it's really hard to make a generalization about a huge number of different language and cultural groups in the province and different economic circumstances. But overall, among nations, there's a huge interest in participation in the resource economy, including mining. The frustration and the disconnect comes when there are activities happening in the territory that the nation is not aware of, that could be done in a way that are consistent with protecting particular areas that are sensitive to the nation for one reason or another, but they're not done in that way because nobody talked to the nation. And that is when you get into a huge jam. The Mineral Tenure Act, a very old piece of legislation, enabled that to take place. And we recognized, the nations recognized that, and industry recognized that it needed to be updated. And we had early discussions with the nations that went to court, and we said, look, we don't need to go to court. We can figure this out. And they decided, which we support, it's their right to go to court to challenge it. The positive that came out of that is that we have a court-imposed deadline to get new legislation in place that addresses these concerns. It focuses the mind, to put it that way. We've had difficult discussions with nations saying, look, we're not going to put a moratorium on permits. We're not going to put a moratorium on exploration as we do this work together. That is a difficult conversation because there are some perspectives out there that we need to do that, and then nations, if they want to opt into exploration, they can. And that is part of the give and take that we're in right now in this kind of new relationship environment that we're in. So we're working together very closely and including with industry to make sure that we're addressing two concerns. One is that nations are full participants on the land. I said this at every event, resource event I go to. We are in the world. Court decisions, the Constitution, what's right to do is to make sure that nations are full participants in what happens on the land. We're making sure that that is incorporated into the statute, but also it needs to work. We are a mining jurisdiction. Prosperity for nations, for the province, for the country comes from mining, among other sources, but mining is a huge contributor. It has to work for industry as well. And so we're going to make sure as we do this work, I think it's 15 months before the court deadline, that it achieves the goals that we have in making sure that it works for industry, it works for nations, and we're able to move forward.
Great. Thank you so much. We're actually at time, so I'm going to say thank you for the chat. Appreciate it. Thank you for your time on stage. I hope that you enjoy a fantastic roundup, and we'll see you all in the next sessions. Thank you.
Thanks very much, and thanks for all you do. Thanks for having me.